Good morning and welcome to our service. We are so glad you're here. Whether you're joining us in person or online, we would like to get to know you and invite you to become an active participant in our congregation. To learn more, please stop by the welcome table in the foyer or fill out a visitor form on our website at www.unitytemple.org. There are many wonderful things happening at Unity Temple, and we hope you will be part of them. Join us for Community Hour on the patios following service or online. A link to the Zoom Community Hour can be found in the chat. We look forward to getting to know you, and we hope you enjoy the service.
Good morning on this Juneteenth and Father's Day. Welcome, everybody. My name is Rich Picorni, and my pronouns are he, him. I serve on your Board of Trustees at Unity Temple, and I'm delighted to welcome you here this morning. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you for attending. I invite you to email Tina Lewis, tlewis@unitytemple.org, to learn more about us. She can answer questions you might have. Following the service, we invite you to join our community hour in person if you're in this sanctuary, or on Zoom for conversation and connection. The link is in your email, or you can contact Tina Lewis for the link. Our theme this month is blessing, and we have a blessing wall out in the foyer, and we invite you to add your blessing to that blessing wall right outside here. We appreciate everyone here in person wearing masks to protect each of us, especially those who are most vulnerable. If you need a break from wearing a mask, you can step out onto the patio and then return when you're comfortable again. At Unity Temple, our values are connection, transformation, justice, and acceptance. We seek to embody these values in our daily lives by welcoming all, inspiring compassion, nurturing wonder, and serving community. Let me highlight serving community. In addition to giving our Sunday collections to worthy groups who support our values, our Faith in Action Network has 7 teams working on various issues to carry our values outside these church walls and create a better world. You can learn more about us on our website, www.unitytemple.org. Thank you. May you find hope, encouragement, and meaning in today's service and carry these with you throughout your week. Now, please greet each other here in the sanctuary or online with our chat.
Our chalice leader for today is Ben O'Connor. Ben likes pastel colors and is entering their frog era. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We take care of the planet Earth and each other. From our histories, our ancestors call to us. We are grateful for their gifts, their lessons, and their challenges to us, calling us into accountability and responsibility to work to fulfill their hopes and aspirations, to harvest the fruit of the trees they planted. We remember and celebrate our parents, grandparents, aunties, and uncles, our siblings from across time and place, those who held us in love and care as we grew. Happy Father's Day, y'all. We remember and celebrate the early Unitarian Universalists, lay people and ordained ministers who brought our faith tradition to Illinois and to the Chicago area. We remember and celebrate the ancestors of Unity Temple who built and grew and dreamed this church and this community into being. We remember and celebrate those who strove to build the beloved community here, representing diverse cultures and traditions, including the indigenous people of different tribes who once occupied this land and still do. We remember and celebrate our activist ancestors, those who struggled for justice, freedom, and liberation for all people, who challenge us to make the circle wider and wider still. We especially remember and celebrate those who battle racism and oppression, which is still alive today, as these ancestors, especially on this day, ask us to join the ongoing struggle to create wholeness out of fractured promises. In this spirit of knowing where and who we come from, we gather this morning in worship. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life's journey, and wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together. I invite you all to rise in body or in spirit as we sing song number 155 in Singing the Living Tradition, Circle Round for Freedom.
The melody, feel free to sing any harmony line you want. The melody is on the middle line, and we'll sing through twice. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
Now please join me in reciting our covenant in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning. My name is Judy Gallardo Grace, and I am one of your pastoral associates. At this time in our service, we share holding each other in our heart. We share joys, sorrows, ups and downs, those events that have had an impact in our life in this past week. We do this because we are a compassionate, caring community, and we want to sit with each other in whatever you share. If you would like to share a milestone, you can email us at pastoralassociates.com. I do this each time. You'd think I'd know it. pastoralassociates@unitytemple.org by Friday night. You can also, if you so choose, light a candle of remembrance. These are the milestones that have been shared this week. Beth Dowell shares, our family has been sad this week after saying goodbye to Abube Nwafar, our Nigerian exchange student for the past year. He brought us a lot of joy this past year, and the house seems a little emptier without him, although we do seem to have more leftovers. Goodbyes are bittersweet. Thank you to the congregation who also made him feel welcome this year. Want to thank anyone who has had any impact as a father, whether mother, father, male, female, on people's lives as we celebrate this Father's Day. Violence in its many forms touches the lives of people both inside and outside of this congregation. May we hold in our hearts all those who have been impacted by such violence, whether victims or perpetrators. A reading by Polly Leland Meyer. As we come together, may we find cessation of whatever personal turmoil accompanies us. May we seek forgiveness for harsh words uttered or healing words left unsaid. May we each of us find the strength to endure difficulty. May we find acceptance of those we may not understand. And as this season becomes more glorious with each passing day, may we be aware of each and every miracle around us and be glad. On this day, when custom reminds us to remember those who gave us life and nurtured our early years, let us give deep thanks for each person, female or male, family or friend, who loved and guided us to be who we are today. May we find ways to express that love in words and in the ongoing integrity of our lives. And let us be supporters of each other in this uncertain venue that is our shared life, that our lives may be strengthened and enriched.
If you are someone who likes to come close when you're listening to a story, you can join me down here on the carpet. Hi, guys. Good morning. The story for today is Juneteenth for Maisie, written by Floyd Cooper. Maisie wants to play outside, but it is too late. It's getting dark, Maisie. It's time to stay inside. Maisie wants a cookie, but it is time for bed. Not now, little one. It's too close to bedtime. Maisie wants to stay up late, but she is too little. Bedtime is the rule, sweet girl. Why so grumpy, Sugar Bear? Asks Dad. I can't go where I want, have what I want, or do what I want, answers Maisie. Well, tomorrow you can have a celebration, says Dad. What are we celebrating? Asks Maisie. We will celebrate the day our great-great-great-grandpa Mose crossed into liberty. The day we celebrated by us and many more families on the day we call Juneteenth. Dad lifts Maisie into his arms. I bet you're tired of hearing no all the time. Well, great-great-great-grandpa Mose heard no even more. Grandpa Mose worked in the fields that stretched all the way to sunset. He and the other enslaved people would be bone-tired, but they had to keep on going. Their enslavers wouldn't let them quit, but as they worked, they thought about freedom. And before they finally went to sleep at night, they prayed about freedom and made plans for change and a better future. Some slaves ran north to freedom, following a bright star in the sky. They sweat, they bled, and they cried till those cries were quieted by a single proclamation from a brave president. Grandpa Mose heard that proclamation read from the balcony of the hotel on that warm June day in Galveston, Texas. Grandpa Mose heard nothing but cheers, saw nothing but happiness, and felt nothing but pride shared by those all around him. The cheers became dancing. The dancing became celebrating. It went on and on into the night. Grandpa Mose and the others had found freedom. They continued to work, but this time they were paid for their hard work. So they worked and they saved, and they never forgot the moment they heard, the moment that changed their lives forever. But things weren't perfect. Black people still struggled to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people. They still weren't treated as equals. It wasn't easy, but they never gave up. And every year on Juneteenth, they remembered. They marched for jobs. They lobbied for schools and the right to vote. They shouted for opportunity. And every year on Juneteenth, they celebrated and remembered. They learned and they grew. They forgave. They excelled and achieved. They became heroes. Now, sweet Maisie, it's your turn to celebrate, just like great-great-great-grandpa Mose. It's your turn, Maisie, to eat some barbecue and drink some strawberry pop. It's your turn to celebrate. And to remember. The end. Let's go. Ready?
Last year, on June 15th, 2021, with just 4 days' notice, June 19th became a federal holiday. For many white people, and indeed for some Black people and people of color, this was the first they'd heard of Juneteenth. Today, I'd like to take a look at Juneteenth and what it might mean for us today. You heard a bit about the history of Juneteenth in our message for all ages a few minutes ago. On June 19th, 1865, 157 years ago today, and 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed slaves in the rebelling Confederate States, Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and issued General Order 3, which stated, quote, "In accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free." Following Granger's proclamation, the formerly enslaved Black Americans broke into celebration. Over time, these celebrations have evolved, but they have often included religious services, inspirational speeches, stories from formerly enslaved people, games and contests, singing, music like the spirituals and music that Peter is playing for us today. And of course, they include lots and lots of feasting. Additionally, clothing has been an important aspect of Juneteenth celebrations. Journalist Nadra Karim Niddle writes, "For formerly enslaved people, making a distinction between their lives in captivity and their lives as free people was essential. And one way to do this was to wear bright and lively clothing, something they were not able to do when they had enslavers. Popular colors became black, green, and red, the colors of the Pan-African flag, as well as red, white, and blue, the colors of the American flag. If we are not Black, we may be wondering if we can or should participate in these celebrations. Should we go to the festivals? Should we dress up? And the truth is, there's not one easy answer. Some Black people believe that Juneteenth is absolutely not for white people, while others invite anyone who wants to come and to learn. Certainly, anyone who attends a Juneteenth celebration should do so respectfully and having educated themselves on the meaning of the day, both historically and today. Race-conscious dialogues of Oak Park, in their email that went out a few days ago, pointed out that last year for the Oak Park Juneteenth celebration, it worked really well to have white and people of color volunteers contribute labor, like helping to dish out food and cleaning up trash to enable the Black residents to more fully enjoy the day. So if you are the type of person who wants to do something, being in a supportive role like this so that others can celebrate might be an option for you. But first and foremost, if you do not identify as Black or of African descent and you do attend, go respectfully. Plan to listen more than you speak, and be aware of the relevance that Juneteenth has to the Black community today, because it has become the most widely observed emancipation celebration. In fact, this year, corporations and companies are engaging in performative corporate activism about Juneteenth, much like they do for Pride Month. And by this, I mean they are visibly celebrating Juneteenth without actually examining or changing any of their policies or practices. Your company might have a picnic or a diversity day speaker, one HR website suggests for how a company might celebrate Juneteenth. But many of these corporate events perpetuate a harmful myth of Juneteenth. The story that says that the poor folks of Galveston just didn't know slavery had ended, bless their hearts. The news just hadn't got to them yet. This is not true. The white slaveholders in Galveston absolutely did know that slavery had ended. News had gone out to the country via telegraph. They continued to keep Black people in bondage because they could. Writing in the Jewish independent newsletter, The Forward, Robin Washington excoriates the myth that neither Black nor white people had any clue that slavery had ended. Indeed, he cites sources indicating that even the enslaved people in Galveston knew. Yet the slaveholders, he writes, nonetheless kept them in bondage, not by cunning or deceit or ignorance, but by the brute force and tactics of dehumanizing torture they had been using for 200 years. General Granger didn't bring liberation by words on a scroll, Washington writes, but by troops with fixed bayonets. Beloveds, white supremacy holds on tight. While Juneteenth is a celebration of the end of slavery, it also recognizes that white supremacy will not go without a fight. So rather than talk about how or whether we might celebrate Juneteenth, I want to spend some time talking about how we might honor it. And all of us, no matter our race, can choose to honor Juneteenth. And honoring Juneteenth starts with educating ourselves about what abolition, what ending slavery means today. I hope we are all on the same page when I say that life in this country is still a struggle every day for Black Americans. Unity Temple member Alice O'Cray, an American of African descent, states this: "For me, a holiday means little when there are food deserts in African American neighborhoods such as Maywood and Austin, Black people are still traumatized by police, attending segregated, underfunded schools, afraid to go shopping for fear of being gunned down by white domestic terrorists, followed around in bookstores, and whose history and contributions to the United States of America are erased in textbooks. And the way that Black people are treated in this country is especially a problem when it comes to our carceral state, which includes prisons and jails, and also our systems of policing and our legal system. Brian Stevenson, founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative, author of the book Just Mercy, has a great movie based on it, and Unitarian Universalist General Assembly Ware lecturer. I mentioned the Ware lecture last week. He was the Ware lecturer in 2017. This is what Brian Stevenson says. Slavery gave America a fear of Black people and a taste for violent punishment. Both still define our criminal justice system. Beloveds, we know that Black Americans are 6 times more likely to be sentenced to prison for the same crime as a white person. We know that 1 in 3 Black males born in the past decade can expect to spend some time in prison during his lifetime. We know that police violence against Black people is so epidemic that civil rights demonstrations have shut down cities across the country as millions of people have marched to protest police brutality and to proclaim that Black lives matter. Now, I know some of you work for the police or are lawyers or are employed by other parts of the carceral state in other ways, and that you may be starting to feel a little defensive because you are probably, no doubtedly, working hard to make positive change from the inside. So let me be clear. The system is the problem, the carceral state. I am not attacking you personally or how you make a living, but as you well know and would probably be the first to admit, the systems that you work within have some serious problems. Writing in Global Policy last year, Tryon Woods explains, with roots in the racial slavery of the Atlantic world, the criminal justice system in the United States presents a clear case study in modern slavery. Each historical period since the end of the American Civil War has contributed to a massive system of control to the point that the U.S. now has 2.27 million people behind bars, with an additional 5 million more people under community supervision of some kind. The U.S. rate of incarceration, Woods says, remains by far the highest in the world. The degree to which the U.S. is out of pace with the rest of the world's humanity is that a full quarter of all prisoners worldwide are held in United States jails and prisons. And the U.S. incarceration rate of 639 people per 100,000 people is 5 to 10 times higher than other industrialized democracies. 65% of the total U.S. prison population is Black, despite Black people comprising only 14.6% of American society in 2019. Because non-Black people of color are represented in the prison population, commensurate with their demographic presence in the United States society, the criminal justice system bears a specifically anti-Black character that directly indicts its place within the United States' long-standing status of a slaveholding society. In fact, the connection between slavery and our carceral state is enshrined in our Constitution. The 13th Amendment states neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, shall exist in the United States. Woods points out that this amendment does not actually abolish slavery, but instead relocates it into the domain of the criminal justice system. Debates about mass incarceration today point to this feature of the 13th Amendment, and people talk about it as though it were a loophole or a design flaw. But Wood says the clause in question is a design feature, historically consistent with the original agenda of the war to extend, not end, Black enslavement. Since criminalization is first and foremost a political symbolic tool, it refers not to individual but behavior, but rather to a racialized construct of human worth. A racialized construct of human worth. Juneteenth is a day that calls us to work for Black liberation, to work for the abolition of slavery, not just 157 years ago, but today. Our system of policing and mass incarceration is a racialized construct of human worth that specifically says that Black people are not worthy. But can't the system be reformed? That's often the next question that arises when discussing abolition, both today and historically. I believe that just as slavery couldn't be reformed and should have been ended, our carceral state, from police to prisons, cannot be reformed and needs to be abolished. Now, to be clear, abolition doesn't mean having no way of keeping the populace safe. It means having a system not based on a racialization of human worth. It means something that looks more like what the other industrialized countries have, where people are not targeted because of their race, where people in prisons aren't dehumanized, and so much more. But I don't think we can get there from here because Reformation doesn't threaten existing structures. It doesn't address the root cause of this racialized construct of human worth that is the very foundation of our carceral state. I don't know how many of you are on TikTok, but it's one of my favorite social media outlets. And there's a creator on there named T. Monet who goes by Ink Bottles and Quills. And she did a powerful video recently on 2 different types of allies. She said, historically, there have been 2 types of allies. If we think back to the period in which slavery was the law of the land, there were abolitionists who had wholesale rejection of the evils of the institution and wanted it done away with. But there was a second group of well-meaning, well-intentioned, so-called good folks, she says, who didn't reject the institution. They had issues with the way slaves were treated. So I need you to ask yourselves, she says, if you want to do away with my oppression, or if you want to improve the conditions of my oppression. Because when I hear the word reform, she says, that speaks to me about you improving the conditions. Some things just need to be destroyed. Colin Kaepernick puts it this way: suggested prison reforms, such as new jail construction to address crowding and dehumanizing living conditions, and technological monitoring that essentially creates open-air prisons, have not and cannot eliminate the harm of the carceral state. The thread that ties all of these reforms together is the increased investment of capital into the carceral apparatus. Putting more money in. Ultimately, Kaepernick says, I realized that seeking reform would make me an active participant in reforming, reshaping, and rebranding institutional white supremacy, oppression, and death. And so, beloveds, when I tell you that I believe we must abolish the policing and prison system, this is not a political statement. It is a religious one, founded in my belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It is based on my studies, on my reading, on my conversations with people from broad walks of life, and it is grounded in my work as an activist in Louisville, Kentucky, home of Breonna Taylor. I believe it is an affront to our faith as Unitarian Universalists that we live in a carceral state based on a racialized construct of human worth. Our principles don't tell us what to believe, they tell us what to work for. And if we are going to work for a world consistent with our principles, then I believe that the real work of abolition continues today, and that it is a part of working for Black liberation that Juneteenth invites us to work for. Now, I understand you might not agree with this stance, and that is as it is. We have freedom of the pulpit and freedom of the pew. We don't have to be of one mind. Unitarians were not of one mind about slavery 160 years ago. Unitarian Universalist historian Conrad Wright has suggested that most Unitarians at that time fell into one of three groups. Those influenced by the prominent abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison, who acted for the immediate cessation of slavery. Those who sought a gradual end to the institution of slavery so as to minimize disruption of the social, economic, and political order. And those who opposed slavery on moral grounds, but resisted making a political commitment to end it. This is hard work, beloveds, and we are not always going to agree. But we cannot let disagreement or fear of disagreement get in the way of our doing the work. And if we stay engaged in the work of racial justice, we are going to make mistakes. We will hurt each other in the process and have to make repairs to get back into right relations. I know I make so many mistakes and missteps, and it hurts, and I am sorry. But we must not let disagreement or fear of conflict or fear of making a mistake stop us from struggling with how to overcome systems of white supremacy culture in ourselves and in our communities. We cannot let disagreement or fear of conflict or fear of making a mistake stop us from struggling with how to bring about the end of racialized carceral state in this country. And we cannot let disagreement or fear of conflict or fear of making a mistake stop us from struggling with how to bring about racial justice more broadly. This is how we honor Juneteenth, whether or not we celebrate it. By working for Black liberation, knowing our work will be imperfect and insufficient, and doing it anyway. I leave the last words to another of Unity Temple's Black elders, Ralph Lee, who wrote, "We cannot afford to treat Juneteenth like most of us treat our warm weather holidays like Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day. That is, with the emphasis primarily on grilled meats, alcohol, and friendly gatherings. It is important," he says, "that we use Juneteenth as well as other means for reminding all Americans that the Civil War has not ended, and that the most important battles in that war will likely be fought during the next 10 to 20 years. May it be so. May we work to make it so this Juneteenth."
Each week, we give our Sunday collection to an organization that aligns with our values. This week, our offering supports the Community Renewal Society. The Community Renewal Society connects a network of Chicago area faith communities who are organizing and advocating for racial, economic, and LGBTQI justice. The community organizing training offered by CRS helped us at Unity Temple to grow into much more effective advocates for justice issues. Their techniques also provided a key role in the development of the UU Advocacy Network of Illinois. CRS is one of the primary partners of our Faith in Action Restorative Justice team. You may donate by placing cash or checks in the collection baskets that are being passed. And I think they're already being passed. If you're sitting in a back pew of your row and they're not being passed, please pick them up and circulate them. Someone will be at the back of the main floor of the sanctuary to collect all the baskets. You can also give by sending a check to Unity Temple office with Community Renewal Society or CRS on the memo line, or by following the instructions on your screen. Thank you in advance for your generous support, and may what you give bring you joy.
So our second hymn is number 391 in the gray hymnal, Voice Still and Small. We'll sing it through twice, and let's stay seated. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
In the words of Angela Davis, today is Juneteenth, the day we celebrate the end of slavery, the day we memorialize those who offered hope for the future, and the day when we renew our commitment to the struggle for freedom. Beloveds, may we listen to that still small voice deep inside us that enables to remain steadfast through storm and rain, sorrow and pain, and to have faith that we are on the path towards justice. And now please join me in the words of our Chalice Extinguishing printed in your order of service. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.